Yo, what's up, Panthers fans? Welcome back to In the Box with Alex. This is a Fifth Line 5R show presented by 5 Reasons Sports. The Florida Panthers are currently sitting at 28-4. They are third place in the Discover Central Division. They're 1 point behind the Carolina Hurricanes. The Canes have a 1 game in hand, and they're 6 points behind Tampa Bay Lightning. Unfortunately, the Panthers haven't been playing their best hockey of late. Since the last episode, they have been 1-3 in their last 4 games. Sergei Bobrovsky, after winning 6 straight games, has lost his last 2 games in a row. The Panthers have also, for the first time this season, dropped 2 straight games in regulation after losing to both Tampa and then last night to Chicago. Sergei Bobrovsky is probably going to be in net tomorrow night, and Chris Driedger has been 1-1 in his last 2 starts. Some bad news for Panthers fans. Alexander Barkov did not play last game. He was taken off the ice during warmups. He is day-to-day. He will not be in the lineup tomorrow per Coach Q. Seems like some lower body issue. Their next series is in Dallas after tomorrow night in Chicago. So they'll play 2 games against the Stars. It's a back-to-back, and the team looked very lost without their captain. The power play looked horrendous. They gave up multiple shorthanded chances. They went down 3-0. They somehow mustered up a comeback once again, made it 3-2 with just a couple minutes left. Unfortunately, they pulled the goalie a little too early, in my opinion, meaning they didn't have possession. Then Chicago got the puck in the offensive zone. Aaron Ekblad had to take a penalty, and the Panthers had like 15 seconds to make a push. So once again, a little too late for a Panthers comeback. They are 1-3 in the last 4 games. So last time we were here, they were tied for first place in the NHL. Now they are 6 points behind Tampa Bay. They are, once again, 1 point behind Carolina. So they're slipping a little bit in the standings. It's not too much to worry about, but let's see how they can do without Barkov. Let's see how long he actually is out with day-to-day injuries. Sometimes it's 1 game, sometimes it's 3 or 4, especially when you have a back-to-back coming up against Dallas. If he's not ready by the 27th, which is when I think they play the first game against Dallas, he might not be ready on the 28th either, and we might have to wait until they come back to Sunrise and play against Detroit. A couple big contributors over the last couple games for me, at least. Noel Acciari, once again, he's amazing. He eats pucks on the penalty kill, blocks 3-4 shots a night. He can go get assists. He can go get goals. He wins big draws. One of the most underrated players on this team, and he's someone that you really need to step up, and he has. When the number 1 center is out, Noel Acciari, who plays bottom line, bottom 6, when he's stepping up like that, it's huge. Unfortunately, the Panthers don't have too much center depth. We'll get into that a little bit later in this episode, and a couple of guys I think they could trade for. Alexander Wenberg's currently the number 2 center, and he's doing all right, but he's not a true number 2 center. But it's not the greatest when your franchise player is out. Luckily, it's only a day-to-day, meaning he's not out the season. He'll be back in a couple games. But Eetu Listerainen, the rookie, he was actually sent to the taxi squad. He was a third-line center. He's had a couple rough games over the last few, turning the puck over a lot, and I kind of saw it coming. I thought maybe they would scratch him. They sent him down to the taxi squad, and came at a pretty bad time because they didn't know Barkov wasn't going to play when they sent him to the taxi squad, so he wasn't there to be dressed. They brought up Hinostroza, and Nudavara hasn't played in a while back on the back end, ever since Anton Strawman came up. So quickly, I want to talk a little bit about Nudavara. Since Strawman has returned, they have kept the same 6 defensemen with Ekblad, Weegar, Yandel, Strawman, and Gudis. And I'm forgetting the last one. Anyways, that'll come to me in a minute. There's a trade rumor with Marcus Nudavara. According to James Cybelski of Sportsnet 650 Vancouver, he tweeted this. Hearing the Canucks have talked to the Panthers about a possible trade scenario involving Jake Virtanen and one of Florida's depth defensemen, possibly Marcus Nudavara. So, for you who don't know who Jake Virtanen is, believe he was a first-round pick a few years ago. He's only 24 years old. I believe he is actually from BC or somewhere in Canada. This year, he's not doing good. He only has 4 goals in 31 games, 4 points also. Last year was his career high, 18 goals, 18 assists. So he only had 36 points in 69 games, but that's his career high. He hasn't really panned out to what Vancouver wanted him to be. And the thing that might sway the Panthers in potentially doing this deal, once again, this is only a rumor. I don't know if it actually happened. They both have very similar cap hits, and they have both very similar salaries. Virtanen has a $3.4 million salary this year and next year, but the cap hit is only $2.55 million. Nudavara's cap hit is $2.7 million. They both expire next year. I like Nudavara, but it seems like they're pretty much set with keeping Strawman there. And even though I like defensive depth, if they want to move on from Nudavara, Jake Virtanen might be one of the only guys you'll be able to get just because it matches the cap. They're very similar numbers, and it's kind of like a revitalization project. We saw it with Duclair this year. They brought in Duclair really cheap, and he's performed very well for the role he was given. Threw him into the top 6, played on the first line with Barkov. Hasn't scored so many goals, but he's just so good with the puck. And I'm not saying Jake Virtanen will be that guy if he even comes to the Panthers, but it's one of those revitalization projects. I don't know how I feel about it, but if it happens, it happens. Once again, this is a rumor. It was tweeted out a couple days ago. I think Nudavara has only played 9 or 10 games. Gustav Forsing's a defenseman. I forgot. He's been playing really well, so it seems like they basically have their top 6 set. Now, let's talk about the center depth. As we saw, Barkov's out. Even before that, Wenberg was kind of playing a little bit above what he should be playing when he's playing on the second line. He's played well, but he's not a second-line center. He's a really good third-line center, probably one of the best in the league. But there's a couple guys on TSN and the Athletic trade bait list. So Rickard Rakell from the Anaheim Ducks. He's number, I believe it's 3 on the Athletics trade board, number 2. So he's number 2 right now. A couple years ago, he had 69 points in 77 games. Hasn't hit those numbers recently, but he only 27 years old. He could slot in on that second line if you get him for cheap, maybe a draft pick or 2, maybe a low-end prospect, or maybe a Heponiemi if they're not going to plan on keeping him. Another guy is from the Nashville Predators. It's Mikael Granlund. They traded for him a couple years ago, I think 2 seasons ago, for Kevin Fiala. That really hasn't worked out. Fiala is absolutely tearing it up in Minnesota, and Granlund hasn't really done too well in Nashville, so they're looking to move on from him. Nashville also has Matthias Ekholm, a defenseman, on the trade board, so I don't really know what's going on in Nashville, but if you can get either of those guys for relatively cheap, it's only rental deals, basically. I think Raquel might have an extra year. I wouldn't mind picking up the phone, just trying to see the depth, add a little bit more depth, and not having to give up a roster player, not having to give up a really high-end prospect like Anton Lundell. Taylor Hall, his name's been put up. You would need to get him on a retaining salary because he has $8 million of cap hit, and he's a left winger. The need is a centerman, even though Taylor Hall's potential ceiling for this season is probably higher if he's playing on the Panthers than Raquel would be, or maybe Granlund. You need the center, so that's why I don't think they're going to go for Taylor Hall. I think Buffalo has so much stuff they need to sort out. Hall's going to be traded. He's not going to be kept. I don't think the Panthers will pick him up, but I think they might make a call or two to try and get a center, maybe even Luke Glendening from Detroit. There's a couple guys, a couple centers that you can make a call for. Before we wrap it up, just looking ahead, once again, Barkov is not playing against Chicago tomorrow night. He didn't play last game either. Be a little wary if he's going to play against Dallas in that back-to-back series. I hope he's going to be okay, but you never know. Before we go, make sure you subscribe to the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn the post notifications on. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at FifthLine5R. Check out 5 Reasons Sports on Twitter as well. The NBA trade deadline is right around the corner, and I know the Heat boys have been putting in a lot of work, so make sure you check us out there. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at abaumgartner91. We got a couple nice shirts in the 5 Reasons Sports store right here. We got the Quinville shirt. Obviously, we haven't been winning as of late, but not too much to sweat. And once again, make sure you subscribe. Thanks so much for watching In the Box with Alex. We'll see you next week.